What drives those who most desperately need to prove their intelligence to be precisely the ones who possess the least of it? Picture for a moment that scene we've all witnessed. A workplace meeting where someone monopolizes the conversation, constantly interrupts colleagues, and needs to voice their opinion on absolutely everything, even when the topic lies completely outside their area of expertise. There's something deeply unsettling about this character, something that bothers us profoundly, yet we rarely manage to identify with precision. Dostoevsky, through his relentless analysis of human nature, understood that the noisiest beings are often the most hollow inside. This isn't a cruel observation, but a fundamental psychological truth. When someone shouts too loudly, it's because they fear not being heard. When someone speaks incessantly, it's because they cannot tolerate the silence that might reveal their own insignificance. The Russian writer knew that arrogance is, most of the time, fear's most elaborate disguise. It's the armor protecting a fragile ego from the devastating reality of its own mediocrity. Watch these people carefully in your daily life. They cannot admit ignorance about anything. They transform any casual conversation into an intellectual competition. They must always have the final word, not from genuine conviction, but from a desperate need to maintain the illusion of superiority. This is the arrogant person's tragedy. They become prisoners of their own mask. Every word they utter distances them further from the truth about themselves. Every argument they construct pulls them away from the real possibility of growth. They lose themselves in a labyrinth of their own making, where each corridor leads only to more confusion and isolation. What's most striking about this phenomenon is its predictability. The genuinely intelligent person hesitates before speaking about subjects they don't completely master. They ponder, reflect, admit limitations. The arrogant one, however, has a ready answer for everything, a formed opinion on any topic, an unshakable certainty that impresses only the naive. Dostoevsky understood that this figure isn't necessarily evil in the traditional sense. They are, above all, pathetic. They're someone fighting desperately against their own insignificance, without realizing that this fight makes them even more insignificant. It's like an actor who forgot they were performing and began believing they truly are the character. The cruelest irony is that this posture drives away precisely those people who could help with genuine growth. Those who have something valuable to teach rarely waste time with those who already know everything. The arrogant person inevitably surrounds themselves with flatterers or equally limited people, creating an echo chamber that only reinforces their illusions. There's something deeply cinematic about this dynamic. It's like watching a psychological horror film where the protagonist is their own antagonist but lacks awareness of it. Every move they make to save themselves sinks them deeper into the swamp of their own creation. Every word meant to demonstrate their intelligence only exposes their fundamental ignorance. True courage, as Dostoevsky discovered in his deepest reflections, doesn't reside in noise or ostentation, but in the capacity to face one's own vulnerability without needing to mask it with arrogance. There exists a terrible confusion in our era between impulsiveness and bravery. Many people mistake the inability to reflect before acting for genuine courage. They aren't brave. They're simply blind to the consequences of their actions. It's like a driver who accelerates in fog thinking they're being audacious, when they're actually just being irresponsible. The Russian writer observed with surgical precision how wounded pride can be confused with noble principles. There are characters in his works who act driven not by justice or truth, but by the inability to tolerate any scratch to their self-image. They destroy relationships, sabotage opportunities, and drive away beloved people, all in the name of a dignity that exists only in their minds. The cost of this false courage is devastating and accumulates silently over the years. First, there are the lost opportunities. When someone already knows everything, there's no reason to listen to valuable advice. Potential mentors are rejected. Promising partnerships are discarded. Alternative paths aren't even considered. The person becomes a prisoner of their own supposed wisdom. Then come the destroyed relationships. It's impossible to maintain genuine connections when constantly in defense or attack mode. Arrogance creates an invisible but impenetrable barrier between the person and the world. Family, friends, colleagues, all begin to pull away, not from malice, but from emotional exhaustion. No one can indefinitely sustain a relationship with someone who turns every conversation into a battlefield. Personal growth becomes impossible in this scenario. How can someone evolve who has already reached the summit of their imaginary mountain? The arrogant person condemns themselves to stagnation, repeating the same patterns, making the same mistakes, but always blaming external factors for their failures. It's a prison built with their own hands, but whose keys they refuse to seek. Dostoevsky perceived that there's a specific loneliness of the arrogant, different from all other forms of isolation. It's the loneliness of someone who surrounded themselves with walls so high that even they can no longer see the world outside. It's the loneliness of someone who screams so much they've lost the ability to listen, including to their own inner voice. But perhaps the most tragic cost is the loss of the capacity to genuinely admire. When someone constantly needs to prove their superiority, they lose the ability to marvel at others' competence. They lose the chance to learn from masters. They lose the opportunity to be inspired by great examples. The world becomes smaller, grayer, less interesting. The supreme irony is that this posture, supposedly created to protect self-esteem, ends up being what most corrodes it. Deep down, in moments of silence they rarely allow themselves to have, the arrogant person knows. They know they're acting. They know they're fighting windmills. They know their fortress is made of cardboard. And this secret knowledge corrodes them from within like a slow and relentless acid. There's a type of presence that doesn't need to announce itself, a type of strength that doesn't shout, a type of intelligence that doesn't show off. Dostoevsky recognized it in the deepest characters of his works, those who carried entire worlds within themselves, but rarely revealed them completely. Intelligent silence isn't absence of thought, it's abundance of reflection. It's not passivity, it's conscious choice. When someone truly secure decides not to speak, it's not from lack of things to say, but from excess of options and the wisdom to know that not everything needs to be verbalized. There's something magnetic about these people. They enter a room and without saying a word, have already altered the environment's dynamic. It's not manufactured mystery or studied pose. It's the naturalness of someone who has nothing to prove because they've already proven it to themselves. It's the tranquility of someone who knows their own worth and doesn't need constant validation from others. The Russian writer knew that the most memorable characters are rarely those who talk the most. They're those whose silences carry weight, whose pauses say more than entire speeches, whose glances communicate truths that words could never express. There's an elegant economy in these figures' communication. Each word is chosen, each gesture has purpose, each silence is eloquent. This posture creates a fascinating cascade effect in social interactions. When someone isn't desperate to speak, others feel more comfortable expressing themselves genuinely. When someone isn't constantly judging or competing, a safe space is created for vulnerability and authenticity. Paradoxically, those who seek attention least are those who receive it most. Strategic silence reveals truths that noise masks. In a meeting, for example, who is really listening and who is just waiting for their turn to speak? Who is processing information and who is formulating their next argument? Who is genuinely interested in the solution and who is more concerned with appearing smart? Dostoevsky understood that there exists an inner language much richer than the outer one. While insecure people talk to convince themselves of their own ideas, wise people remain silent to better understand situations' complexity. They know that first impressions are rarely the most accurate, that automatic responses are rarely the most intelligent. There's a fundamental difference between those who use silence as a weapon and those who use it as a tool for understanding. Passive-aggressive silence is easy to identify. It carries resentment, disguised superiority, an attempt to punish through absence. Intelligent silence, however, is generous. It creates space for others to shine, allows better ideas to emerge, recognizes that conversation doesn't need to be a solo performance. People with this posture develop an almost supernatural ability to ask questions that go straight to the heart of issues. Instead of categorical statements, they offer inquiries that open possibilities. Instead of ready answers, they create spaces for collective discoveries. They become catalysts for others' insights, facilitators of creative solutions. Most interesting is how this approach transforms not only external interactions, but also the inner world of those who practice it. When we stop talking compulsively, we begin to hear our own inner voice more clearly. When we stop reacting automatically, we gain time for more elaborate and precise responses. It's a silent revolution that begins within and radiates outward. It's not about becoming a quiet or shy person. It's about becoming someone whose communication has real impact because each word was weighed, each contribution was considered, each intervention had genuine purpose. Dostoevsky knew that the most powerful moments of transformation often happen in silence, in the pauses between words, in the spaces where truth can finally breathe, in the intervals where the soul can reconnect with itself. The world doesn't need our opinion on everything. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can offer is our full attention, not our voice. Sometimes, the most valuable contribution is creating space for others to express themselves authentically. Sometimes, true power lies in knowing when to step back, when to observe, when to simply be present without the need to leave our mark on every moment. After all, are we being generous enough with our silences? Are we creating spaces for other voices to emerge and surprise us? If this reflection touched something in you, leave your comment telling how you intend to experiment with the power of silence in your life. Like this video, if it made you rethink your own communication patterns, and subscribe to the channel for more content that challenges the obvious and invites genuine transformation. Based on the work and thought of Fyodor Dostoevsky, this content combines classic literature with practical application for the modern world. Intelligent silence, Dostoevsky. Effective communication, personal development, leadership, psychology, self-awareness, literature, confidence, relationships,